Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming. We're going to continue our standing advisory committee meetings. You just witnessed the first one, which was public safety, and this is the second one, the Ways and Means Advisory Committee meeting. I want to recognize one of the advisory committee members, which is Council President McDonald. And I would just want to go over what the purpose of the Ways and Means Advisory Committee. And these committees shall provide oversight of the advisory nature in respective areas. We have one for the Advisory and Ways and Means Committee, the Finance Committee. That meeting will follow this one at 12 o'clock. Then we have the Public Works and Sanitation Committee, Advisory Committee. And then we just saw the Public Safety Committee. So there are 4 standing advisory committee meetings in the town. The Ways and Means Committee shall inquire into and consider the methods and sources for raising revenues and propose the means of providing the funds needed by the town government. So in the last meeting, we talked about a lot of activities and programs that the citizens and the chief of police would like to provide to the town. However, we do realize that we have to have the resources in order to do that. So the purpose of the Ways and Means Advisory Committee is try to identify ways in which we can provide the revenue to bring these programs to the town of Forest Heights. So what we have here, today, we have our treasurer, Mr. Frankenfield, and he will go over the status of the town's finances. So Mr. Frankenfield?
Yeah, can you give me a couple minutes? I'm just getting my IT together here.
And while he's getting ready, we had a member of the town earlier in the public safety committee. He says, "Oh, $1 million, that's nothing." So he's going to help us identify ways that we can find $1 million. I think he's going to write us a check, but we'll see. Yeah, we're going to do installments. Okay.
Good morning again. With this committee, I just want to say to the residents and to the community that these advisory meetings are your meetings. So we have people who live in the town who may have some great ideas that we may have never thought of to create the Ways and Means. They may have access to government funding, know where it is, and how to, access it. So, I mean, these are the things that we need the community's engagement. Thank you.
And Council President McDonald, would you like to say anything while we're waiting? Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like to say anything while we're waiting? Okay. Well, I'll get the.
My bad. Yes, ma'am. My name is Joseph Smith. My question is, do we have a list of the current grants that the town currently receives, like a full list? Do we?
Good morning. Thank you for your question. So I think we want to probably be mindful of crossing over topics and making sure that we're in the Ways and Means Committee when we ask our questions. So your question would be brought up at the Finance Committee meeting when we talk about the agenda for that meeting. So it is one of the items. It is one of the items on the agenda for that meeting, just so that you know. But if it has to be answered now, I'm just letting you know that that's the next meeting.
Yes, the list exists and the grants and stuff, that is a means of how we finance the activities of the town. So I think that's an appropriate question at this time. And Mr. Frankenfield will be glad to answer those questions. Once he brings his presentation up, you'll probably see some of the answers to your questions. Thank you. But that's a good question.
I'm sorry, but like all grants, they do have some expiration dates. So we may have a list of current grants that are about to expire, or there's no more funding in that grant, or it's already been dispersed. Thank you.
And we are going to let the expert, Mr. Frankenfield, talk about those things. And we're having some technical difficulty right now.
I have a question too, but is Mr. Frankenberg going to respond to this question?
Mr. Frankenfield,
Pardon me?
he's setting up right now, so
Okay.
can you just hold your question for,
Yes, ma'am, I can.
thank you. So while he's waiting, we'll go over our last, I'll just remind you of our last Ways and Means Committee. And we had identified some ways in order to raise income for the town. And we identified some things that that affect the residents. We said that we were going to revamp the rental property permits. We identified some other permits that the prices could be raised, and those were implemented. We also identified some annexation down to 10, and that's in the process as far as public safety is concerned. So those things we implemented last time, and hopefully we'll identify some other ways in which we can bring some more income into the town. Because like Councilwoman Noble said, when we get grants, those are targeted for certain activities. And more times than not, we cannot just take those monies and apply it to any activity we choose. So those are targeted grants. So when we look for grants, we have to be mindful that those grants can help in the general fund and help the overall expenses of the town. Most of the grants that come to the police department are for activities for the police department, and they usually get the most grants. So when it comes to general funds and the activities of the town, those grants, the monies that's spent usually come from tax dollars, where you pay your property taxes, taxes back from the state as far as reimbursement for activities that the town do for the state. So in order to identify dollars that can be used for the general fund, we have to be specific. And as we know, with the climate that's coming in 2025, and with the state of Maryland, they have a shortfall already. They have I forget how many $1 billion for the next 5 years. So the cuts are coming. The money is drying up. So we have to identify ways that we can cut back on expenses and get more money in at the same time. And I know everyone have their priorities, like I want this, I want that, I want this. But like Chief Reese, everything costs dollars. If you want more officers, you're talking about, like he mentioned, $100,000 per person. Where's that money coming from? One of the things we talked about, no one wants to raise property taxes. But sometimes if you want something, you got to give up something. So are you ready, Mr. Frankenfield?
Yeah. Shares.
Okay. Okay. So we have to make sometimes tough decisions, especially in tough times. We all know they are coming. So I just want the residents to be aware that your wish list and the things you want, everything costs dollars. And if we don't have the money, we don't have the money. So we got to figure out as a community, how are we going to get the things that are necessary to keep us safe and keep the town moving. And those are tough decisions.
Question. My, okay.
I need my steps.
So what the current, can you talk about the current process, the town's current process for, applying for and receiving grants? Like, do we have a grant writer, or have we designated someone on the staff who sort of receives, writes grants? And then I just want to kind of have a better understanding about that.
Okay, and Mr. Frankenfield is ready, so he will go over this process with you. And when he finishes, if he hasn't answered your question, I will answer your question.
Good afternoon, all. I'm Todd Frankenfield. I'm a Maryland CPA for the last 14 years. I've been contracted by the town for about the last 18 months. Help with finance, help with accounting. I'm a partner at a CPA firm, run a team of approximately 5 accountants, and we have 4 or 5 other municipal government accountants. So I'm pretty familiar with Maryland municipal government finance. Just going to start with financials, and that'll kind of get us through some of your questions that came up earlier. So on the screen, I have the balance sheet as of 12/31/24. So key thing here is we're halfway through the fiscal year at 12/31. We have an anticipation of what's going to happen for the rest of the year. 2 things I want to call out. So balance sheet is the permanent accounts of the town. This is your cash, your notes, your accounts payable, and your equity or fund balance. In municipal government, we call it fund balance. In, SEC or stock companies, they call it equity, but we talk about fund balance. Anyway, the first section of accounts there are cash balances. At the end of December, the town had just under $1.1 million in cash. The second number there, it's called personal tax receivable, but that's accounts receivable. So things that the town's going to collect on and receive and can use to make payments on. And we anticipate all of that's coming in within 30 to 90 days. So it's very usable to the town, that accounts receivable balance. And then we get into, as we slide down, now we're still in the assets section. Down here, we get into fixed assets and things like that. So the town's got 10 million tied up in fixed assets, buildings, vehicles, things like that. While they are assets, the town can't use it to pay for salaries. We can't pay bills with it. It's tied up in this building and the others that the town has. So while it's an important asset, it doesn't help us make payroll is kind of the difference that I want to flag with things like fixed assets. It's total assets of the town, 11.5 million as of the end of December. And then we get into our payables or what we owe, liabilities. This stuff up here, that's just trade payables. We have a couple bills to pay, the credit cards.
When you say stuff,
Oh, I'm sorry, accounts when I say stuff. So accounts payable, credit cards payable, pension payable, just things that happen in the course of business, so we've got to pay for the employee's retirement or, we've withheld money all year. We got to transfer the cash here in a couple weeks. So I'll stop there. Question?
No, talk in the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This what we have already paid, or what we're on the line for the entire year?
What is due as of that day? So as of December 31, we owed that. We could have paid it on January 2nd and it's been paid, but as of December 31, it's a snapshot. So this is all just trade payable things, bond premium. We write that off over the life of our bonds. Not much to flag there. Now down here is where we get into town debts, long-term liabilities. So leave, we have a liability if the staff terminate, we pay out their vacation balances, copier lease. And then as we go down here, we get into the real significant debts. So car loans, and then our bond liabilities. Axion is a lease where we leased police equipment. And per accounting rules, that's a liability because you have the contract and you've got to pay on it for the next 3 years. Down here, we start talking about mortgages. And the sum of all that is the town has 2.7 million in liabilities that are payable as of the end of December. And then this section here is our fund balance or equity. That's what the town has left. The equation is assets less liabilities equals equity. I'll stop there. Go ahead.
Just a question on the mortgages. I saw 2 lines for mortgages. Can you explain where the mortgage is or what property is associated with the mortgage?
Yes. So at the at the beginning of fiscal year 23, the town's on a fiscal year. So its accounting year starts on July 1 and it ends on June 30. So at the beginning of fiscal year 23, the town purchased a property at 5529 Livingston Road. And as part of that property purchase, the town acquired 2 debts with different lenders to finance the property along with paying cash. And those numbers on the screen reflect the balances of those loans as of December 31, 24.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm. Well, did someone on the line had a question? She, yes, she's been waiting.
Hawkins? Miss Hawkins? Okay, I guess we can move on here.
Okay, great. Any more questions on the balance sheet? So the balance sheet, it's important, to me, the key pieces are those first 2 lines I talked about, cash and receivables. How much can we use in the next 2 months to pay payroll and meet our obligations as we talk about the budget year and our cash flows throughout. So any more questions on the balance sheet?
Is that accurate?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you.
Your question?
Yes, I have a question. I'd like to know, what I know that you guys keep talking about cutting and everything, because finance is getting tight. Well, how would that affect, the service that, that we have now? And what is the long-term goal for, Forest Heights? For as
Okay.
finance? Is
Okay.
there a long-term goal?
Okay.
And I know this is a finance question. The next month, when will all the audits be completed? Because we've been talking about it for a couple of years now.
Okay.
When will they be completed? And I know
Okay.
that's a finance question, so I apologize for that.
Right, you have a lot of questions in there. So let's start with the first one.
Thank you.
That for ask the question again for the Ways and Means Committee question.
Yes. What how are they oh, I'm sorry, let me get back to it.
Excuse me?
How will the cutting affect the service that we have at Forest Heights? The cutbacks, because you guys keep talking about the finance and
Mhm.
we're gonna have to cut back and everything. Because the taxes are pretty high in Forest Heights as of now, right? And I know that Forest Heights does live off of grants and everything, but how will cutting back affect the service that we have now? As far as the police department, any service that affects the homes
Right. Okay, and that is a finance question. The Ways
That's
and
a
Means,
Homes and Means question.
right, the Ways and
Okay.
Means Advisory Committee is a way that we try to get suggestions on how we can find finance for the activities that the town carry out. So what the Ways and Means Committee is try to find ways that we can find finance to finance the town, not necessarily do cutbacks. That's not the role of the Ways and Means Committee. And those things will be discussed in detail from the Finance Committee, and then it will be discussed when the town gets ready to do the new budget, because for the fiscal year 25-26. Because right now, the budget for FY 24-25 is already set. And it's already, there's no, it's already been balanced. So what we're talking about are things that will affect budget year 25-26.
So Councilwoman, my question is it in the next meeting that we will see whatever the forecasted budget was for this year, to have some understanding about where we are, where we know where we are, based on December, money in the bank, assets and those sorts of things, but based on what you guys planned for this year, how much money we need, like, do we have the budget forecast or?
Okay, so what the budget for FY 4 and 25 ends on June 30th. Okay, so that budget is already balanced, sent to the state and things like that. So what we can talk about now, if you want to have some input, is for the 25-26 budgets that will begin on July 1st.
Okay, I mean, it's kind of hard to do that without understanding like where the town had expected to spend money for this year and
Mhm.
how we are adding up. So
Oh,
we're,
yeah.
like, so for instance, if we said we needed 2.5 million, let's just say we needed $2 million,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And we are halfway through the year
And we don't have it.
and we don't have
Right,
$2 million
Right,
to
mhm.
cover all of the
Right.
operational costs.
Exactly.
that we planned for.
It's-
It seems to me that we would want to have a conversation today about what we're gonna do for the rest of the year.
Exactly. That's coming next. This was the
That's
balance
I'll
sheet.
address.
And this gonna be when we talk about the budget versus actuals.
Right.
What we have in the budget, what we actually spent, what we were expecting to receive, and what we have not received. So that's his next part of his presentation. Yes. sir.
Okay, so what exactly is the Ways and Means discussion?
I'm sorry. Okay, wait.
What
Let's recognize
Uh-huh.
questions
Okay,
in
no
order.
problem.
And then
Uh-huh.
let's let Mr. Frankenfield finish his presentation, and then we will
Oh,
address
okay.
questions. Okay?
Okay.
All
Okay,
right.
no problem.
All right,
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith? Okay, that's okay.
Yes, and just to try to bring some of that together, I'll report on, so we're halfway through the year. I'll report on budget versus actuals halfway through the year. So you can kind of see what we did, what we were supposed to do, what we plan to do, which is the budget. And then we can talk about where we go next year.
I'm sorry, I jumped.
No, we're good. Good question. All right. So what I have on the screen, budget versus actuals for fiscal year 25. Again, we're halfway through the year. So, we're looking for revenue. Revenue is different than expense, but we're looking to have raised about 75% of the revenue and spent about 50% of the budget, just because we're halfway through. So anyway, actuals are in the first column where I'm moving my little cursor. Budget for the full year is in the second column. So property taxes or taxes is this first section of the budget. And that right now looks great. We're at 64% raised to date. That's because property taxes we collect through the first half of the year. So as a resident, your tax bill was due to be paid in full by December 31st. The town will get it in January, and then that's it for the year for property taxes. Not much to flag in this section about how we're doing actuals versus budget. Everything looks great. I mean, we're right on track right there. We had the benefit of that late property tax billing from fiscal year 23. So there's a little no, 24. So there's a little extra revenue in this year's budget. But everything looks good in that section. Licenses and permits, we're a little behind budget. We're looking for 15 grand here. We've got 8, but again, not a huge budget line, so we can absorb it at other places. This section of the budget that I've got my cursor on, now this is where we're talking about the town's grants. So the town manager generally runs the grants for the town as far as solicitation, application. The finance team supports on, this is what we spent, this is what we've used towards it. But this section here is all of the grant spending of the town. And back to the question about there's no receivables. The way that our grants work is we spend, we bill, they pay. So, or there's the state where the state just pushes our grants out on a quarterly basis. So like we get a state aid for police protection grant. We just get an automatic push from the state. We don't have to bill or record a receivable for it. So all the grants are paid up on schedule, look as to be expected. Some of these, so the HUD grant, we haven't started the project yet, so we don't have any revenues, but that's fine because we don't have any spending. So as long as we don't have spending later in the grant, later in the report, a lack of revenue year to date isn't a concern or a question. So this section here is, we've raised 280 of our 2.4 that we budgeted for the year. We're under as far as our revenue generation, but that's okay because we don't have the spending on the projects either. The projects haven't started.
So can you remind me of your name?
Todd Frankenfield.
Mr. Frankenfield. If we're halfway through the year, but we don't have any spending relative to over half of the projects that we have listed here, can you speak to why is that?
So some of the projects are, we need permits to get started, or like that HUD grant, we need a plan. I don't know the specifics, the TA runs the grant and why we haven't started, but there's an application process, right? Like our plans have to be approved by the state, let's say, and that is still in process. So until all that's done, then you don't start spending money, and then you don't start collecting until you spend.
Okay, so let me just, if I might, I just want to make sure I have clarity. So there was a grant that was available. The town applied for these grants that are here. The town was awarded the grant, meaning we will give you the money, right? As a result of the grant application that we submitted, which outlined everything that we plan to do as a part of the project, right? So now, I'm having a little bit of trouble here because they gave us the money based on a plan that we submitted. So if the plan was submitted in order to get the money, what's preventing us from starting the grant is my question. Because once unless it was a strategic planning kind of grant where they're giving you the money to specifically do planning, right? Once they say you have the money, what they're looking for you to do is now start the plan, start the project. Now, I might not know the particularities of every grant, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, working in a grants environment, right? You apply for the grant, submit all the paperwork, all of the plans, everything you need. They say, good job. We like this. Here's the money. Take the money, do the plan. But she's saying, no, I'm wrong.
You don't get the money until it's awarded and they download it to you. You got to submit what it is that you're going to do with the money. They have to approve it. You have to have all these inspections and all those things before the money. They saying we set aside some money for you, but you don't have it as of yet. You got to do ABC before you get this money.
Right, but I said that they don't give us the money. We're not getting the money until we spend the money anyway.
No, he's saying that once you spend some money, you get reimbursed for your expenses.
Right. I'm understanding that correctly. So I guess my question is, since we are halfway through the year and we have only about a third of the projects have actual expenses next to it. I guess my question is, what is the holdup on 3/4 of the grants that we've submitted?
I think, so for one thing, I think we need to look at some of the particulars on the section that he's looking at. So some of the things are pushed through the general fund anyway. So maybe Mr. Frankenfield, like, I'm just going to give you an example. The Project Charge Youth Grant, the beautification grant. Where is that at in the budget? Because he's looking at on the paper that it's not being used, but where is it at in the budget now? That may clear up some of your questions.
Yeah, agreed. So to speak directly to those two grants, PGLIC Youth, PGLIC Beautification, the town was paid last year. So in fiscal year 24, the town got $800,000 between those two grants to do the project. We didn't do the whole project. So when we drafted the budget, we anticipated that we had 64,500 left. So there will be no actuals because on those grants, the town was paid in advance. So, but for budgeting purposes, we have the revenue at the top and the expense in the expense section. So those will never see actuals on because we got paid last year. And that's how municipal government accounting works.
Okay, that's just confusing to me because it's showing that we are over budget for that 64. It's not recorded as having received it. It's recorded to look like we are in debt $64,500. I'm not an accountant, you are the expert. I'm just saying the way that this reads to me, when I see a negative, that says that that is a deficit right there versus, you know, like it's something we've been paid for in the past fiscal year. So I just think if it is the case that we've already received the money, then we're not, how would we then be over budget is what I guess I'm trying to understand. And I'll come to your office and we can talk about this a little bit more in depth. I don't want to take up the time doing this. I'm just saying, not ever having seen this budget and looking at it for the first time today, it's a little confusing if we've already gotten the $64,500 last year, but when we look at it on this paper, it's showing a deficit for this year.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Yep. And that's, I'll talk it through when we get to the bottom, but yeah, that's the standard practice and that's how it usually looks. So.
Because it could be the case that we're actually only $1 million. Oh, and we have $1 million deficit, if you will, for this particular part, but because it's the way that it's sort of presented here, it's kind of confusing a little bit, I would say.
Okay. So speed camera revenues year to date look good. You know, we're looking for 1.7 for the year. We're at 1.44. So doing pretty good halfway through the year. Should create some activity for later in the year. Other revenues, not much to flag there for the group. I just want to look at it if anything I want to call out. Donations would be like if you gave for the garden, something that is specific for a purpose. You know, like when we had the 75th, we called it 75th donations. When somebody gives a check for a specific purpose. Okay, overall, so now this section here, this is just fund balance. This is where we brought in amounts from our fund balance from the prior year, again, to balance the budget. Nothing's going to happen. We don't expect actuals here. Again, so halfway through the year, we've raised $3.1 million. Our budget was 7.5. We're at 40% of budget, but we really exclude this million here, and we exclude our grants that we carried over from last year, which is about, I want to say it's 200,000 up here. So overall, we're doing good. Our budget versus actuals look good on revenues. Revenues are right on track. There's nothing that changed that we missed when we built the budget. So all looks good. I'll
So,
stop.
Mr. Frankenfield, in this number under in section 4100, the numbers that you were talking about earlier in terms of like that 64,000 that we were looking at with the youth grant, is that included in the transport to see what are those numbers included in this section right here?
Nope, different
No.
section. No.
Okay.
No.
I'm not understanding that.
We're gonna have to,
Huh?
yeah.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said, we're gonna have to keep moving. Let me show it to you in the next piece of the report. But what it is.
But do you understand why it's unclear to me as a resident? Why that seems, that seems weird to me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I can understand why it seems weird to you. And I just want to say that this is why the residents need a copy of what this spending, because it's your spending, right? It's our spending. But the way I look at it is you had a 64.5 on a positive, then you showed that was the actual, but the budget was a negative because now you're trying to zero it out, right? Because we already had it. I mean,
No. When we, that part, I'm not an expert, but I'm just saying the way that this reads in terms of, it reads over budget. It's in the over budget category. It's not in the category that says it's a part of the budget. So we have actual, we have budget, and then we have over budget. And in the over budget section, that is listed as a deficit. So when we get to the section where it says 4,100 fund balance transfer, meaning the monies that move from one year to the next, if those numbers are not part of that section, that's very confusing to me. I don't understand that.
Mhm.
I don't understand that.
Well, yeah.
I got it, but this is part of the challenge why we can't talk about fixing the issue, the money issues, if we don't have a clear understanding about how the money is being spent. If the numbers don't make sense and we just kind of smooth past that, we can't talk about solving our issues because we don't actually know how much money we're spending and how much money we have.
But you'll see some of that down in the expense section.
Yeah, let me go through the bottom of it. So, yeah, trust- trust.
I'm a novice.
trust the process.
I
Try.
know about money.
All right, so now we're getting into expenses, and this should come together with your questions. Actuals here, budget here, and then what's left in budget in third column. So first example, we spent approximately 27,000 to date. We budgeted 66. We've got 39 left in budget for the year. Again, we're looking that we're spent 50% or under year to date is basically our guideline because we're halfway through the year. I'm not going to spend much time going through this line by line, but if you look at the totals, pretty much in every section, we're under 50%. So our spending is tracking what we anticipated at the beginning of the year. Now, there's going to be lines that are over, there's going to be lines that are under, but in summary, all gets to where we expected it to. And I'll flag workers' comp. We had a late surcharge on our invoice that wasn't anticipated. So that's where we're over budget there. But the rest of this is pretty much tracking as planned. Questions?
Yeah, I had a question because I know that on some of these, on the general government, there are some that are, like 164% spent already. One of them is the copier, for instance. So how do you make up for that? Because I know you just can't go 100% over something by mid-year.
And that's where. So my role, right? I'm outside of procurement. I'm not here signing contracts for copiers and things like that. So we look at it, we say, hey, listen, we've spent whatever we've spent on copiers and we adjust it. We do a mid-year budget adjustment. If it's significant, if it's not significant, there's going to be plenty of lines where we underspent what our plan was. So it can be absorbed somewhere else. And we just take those estimates when we go into next year's budget and provide a better budget number, right? So that, the goal is just, we got to know what it costs to really, if we need a copier over there and we need a copier over here, that's what it costs.
I just had a Ways and Means recommendation. I've said this now for the last 6 months, so I guess I'll just keep repeating it. For the county collects the real estate taxes and they give back 50% of their collection to the town, right? On the real estate tax.
Oh, I see.
No, you don't. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Exactly. So what I'm saying is if they collect $100, then they send the town $50. Right? That's an example. It's like 50%. It's like 50%, right? So, and what I've talked to the mayor about, I've talked to Senator Muse about, and I guess I need to talk to our lobbyists, is that this municipality is not like the next municipality. We have our own police department. We contract for our trash. So for me, the county should give back more of the tax collected, at least 75%. They can have some, but not, I don't think they should have 50-50 because this is not a 50-50 relationship to me. Because we have our public works, we had our streets were the best plowed streets in the whole Prince George's County, I want to say. So, hey.
So what you're suggesting is that as a body, we lobby the county to get more percentage of the real estate property taxes.
Exactly.
And then I will.
So to respond to that, the process is called the municipal tax differential equation. And what happens in the fall is we take our budget, we send it to the county, and they ask this laundry list of what services does the town provide? How many hours do the police work? What's our budget for public works? How much are we given to volunteer fire department? And the county reviews it. They come back with questions. How much are we paying for debt service? And it's an equation. And what that equation is you're getting a discount for being a town resident on your tax bill on the county portion because you're paying the town tax. So it's not that we get more from the county, it's that the county charges the residents less because the town is incurring the costs of the police and the public works and the snow plowing and the things like that. So yeah, there's a formula in place. We send a report every year. They audit it. We go back and forth about what we say we're doing and the cost of that. And then they make a determination. And that's how it gets discounted.
But can we appeal?
Yeah, we can appeal the decision, but it's a pretty fixed formula. So yeah, but you can, but you can't, you have to appeal. It's a percentage scale. So like we get 100% for police because we do 24-hour coverage. We pay for debt service on police. If the county said, no, we're only giving you 80%, then we could appeal and say, hey, we deserve 100% of the police tax differential equation. So yeah, it's very specific. You can't do it in general. You have to pick across these 8 different categories of how they grade it and say, you know what? You gave us 15%, we deserve 20. And then you have to follow their matrix to argue it. But yes.
So my question is, so they have reporting requirements. Do we have reports of that, Todd?
Yeah, I can tell you what the example is.
Okay.
But yeah, the county has a very specific formula where we go back and forth.
Mr. Frankenfield, in the sections where it's above 50%, percent where it says percentage of budget, if it's over the 50% threshold, that means that we are exceeding our expectations at this point in the game for this year. Yes,
Correct.
is that okay? So when we're looking at the total for 450 fines and forfeiture, where we are 82%, we have an 82% advantage. So it seems like we're gonna have a lot more money coming in there than we thought we would. You see what I'm talking about? Yes, that's a yes. Okay.
Yep.
So what do we expect if we're at, so we can expect maybe double that, maybe? No?
Wait, what you, oh,
I'm
you're
asking
saying,
for 450 where it says fines and forfeiture. It's noted here, the actual is 1.4 million, the budgeted was 1.7 million, right? And that says that it's 82, we have already met 82% of the budget in that space, right? I'm on page 1. You see what I'm
Yep.
talking about?
I do, yeah.
All
To
right.
answer your question, yeah, we're halfway through the year. We should expect another 100%, and then we'll hit the end of the year. Now, some of this,
That's good.
that's a one-time thing, that 493. But yeah, we should expect, if double it's 2.8, we should expect 2.3 because we're halfway through the year.
That's not bad.
Right. So that's like some of this works itself out. So yeah, but yeah, you're right on. But let me finish this. I want to get to your Grant's question. But anyway, everything's, I mean, some of this stuff, we're over 50%, but we're okay. What else do I want to flag? 50%. These are small dollar amounts, even though we're over. I mean, the community gardens providing a great service to the residents, so. And I believe there's a grant pending for that
Yes.
activity. 50%. Exactly.
Mr. Frankenfield, and I know for the topic, would you guys, so I'm just giving an example. I still have the questionnaire for, remember the tax differential that the
Yeah.
county sent? If we print that out, that can kind of give you some insight on what the county is asking for. So I'm gonna have Latoya print that out. Okay.
Yeah, and I can, when I get a break, I can email last year's and just so you see it. But yeah, there's 15 categories they test us on.
This might be a suggestion, if I have admitted, committee, we just take points and bring it back to the full committee, so we might want to take this back to the full committee and see if that's something that, as council that we want to do.
Yeah, but anyway, so to sum it all up, I want to get to, but yeah, so here's our beautification, right? So we're going to spend 128 this year because we haven't finished the project and the revenue was in the top. But so it's just, we had the money last year, we got to bring it into this year's budget. So we put revenue and expense in the budget. So we're at 0, but all we're going to do is spend this year. But that's part of our contract. But so like we've lost 200 grand year to date. That's the gist of it. And in the budget, we carried in, sorry, I got to scroll just to show you these pieces, but we scrolled it, we brought in 426 to balance. We took it from savings. We took 426,000 out of savings to balance the budget. When we got to this point last year, we had the opportunity, we said we can sell the building, we could cut staffing or expenses, or we could take it from savings. We said we're taking it from savings. And if we're halfway through the year and we've only lost 200,000, we're right on track. We're exactly where we should be. We've had some staffing, some vacancies, so we're making up what I call salary savings. We've got some positions sitting empty that we're not paying salaries for. Budget looks good to me. We're right on track, but it doesn't fix the issue that we have $1 million in cash because
Is it a million or?
yeah, it was like 1.1 at the end of December. So when I say we have to right size the budget from here on out, so January through September, the town's collections, cash in the door is pretty insignificant, right? So we got $500,000 in property tax revenue in January. After that, we're gonna get dribs, 25 grands, 50 grands. I mean, speed camera's there and it's recurring. There might be a liability to the state there, so that's different. But from this time of the year, January through the fall, all we do is really spend money. We don't have big, significant collections. So when I talk about right sizing the budget, it's because we need $2 million at this point in the year to get us through till September. And that we've taken our 2 million down to 1 million in September. And then we get our next batch of property taxes. And then we're good through January of next year. And then by January of next year, we should have 1.5 million. And then that 1.5 million we burn through until we get into September of 26. But when I say right sizing the budget, we can't have as high of recurring costs as we have historically, because we don't have the cash that if something big happens, a sewer main breaks or it's snowmageddon and we've got to pay contractors through the nose, we could run to the point that we run out of cash. Like we don't have a line of credit. We don't have anything that we got to make payroll. We got to pay bills. So that's when I talk about right sizing the budget. We don't have a line of credit. It never set up, when I inherited the place. I don't know if we can. But that's my concern, right? We start bouncing checks because we don't have the cash to keep the machine as big it is. So that's where. Okay, well, then we can leave it there.
We spend a lot of time going through the budget, and my apologies, because I'm a big people,
That's okay. You don't-
But I think a huge opportunity, just in light of what I'm seeing when I'm out there, like on grants.gov, and even from the state, even as the state prize growth there are a lot of grant funds available, right? Where we could write the grant to solve the problem that the grant sort of outlines, but solving that problem also takes that expense from our operating budget. So now we're paying for something that we already need using some other money, right? So when I look at, it looks like we have about 10 grants. I think the real opportunity, right, for the town is to look at some of the essentially free money, right? I mean, there are these gobs of money. I literally just wrote a grant for my nonprofit for $600,000. Okay. I don't know, but the way that we fund most of what we do is through grants.
Okay.
And I'm
Mrs. Smith, I hate to cut you off, and I appreciate your effort that there's a lot of grants out there. And we will ask that if you want to volunteer, or if you find grants or if you see some that you can send to us.
Well, I would say is, I think we need to have, it should be the regular function of somebody's job in the government, right? To write the grant, not just the town administrator, because this is the main revenue stream for the town.
Yeah, I understand that. Exactly. But in order to get a position for that, it might be $100,000 that we got to put out for a position for that.
No, most states give you a 5% in their rent cost.
Yeah, but you got to pay this person to do the work. They got to come first before you even get any money. So it's not as simple as saying, I'm gonna hire an individual because they might get us some grants. If you hire an individual, you got to pay them salary, you got to pay them benefits and all those things like that. That money is going to be spent before you get a penny from any grant. But you got to have it. You got to have it. You just said we don't have a good credit reference. We don't have a lot of cash. So, but if you know see some grants or something like that you want to send to us and send to the committee, that will be fine, to the council, that will be fine. We'll figure it out. Just send them. Just send it. That's right. But right now we have to close this. I don't know whether the Ms. Hawkins was her question ever answered? Was she able to speak? Is she still there? And we will address her questions at the next meeting, which is the Finance Committee meeting. So if no one has any more questions or comments, then I don't see any hands, but if I do, I'm gonna have to ignore them to the next meeting. We're gonna close this meeting. I want to thank you all for coming. I think one of the suggestions that we get out of this meeting is for us finding and from the Ways and Means Committee, we might look at the municipal property tax equation and maybe write some appeal to the state to get another percentage for our tax differential. And I think that's the biggest thing that came out of this meeting. Thank you all. And Mr. Smith, well, there is well, we'll talk about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank everybody for being here. My name is Jamila McDonald, Town Council President and the Chair for Finance Committee. And we will be going over fiscal year budget 26, budget versus actuals. We talked about that, and then some, I guess, more information around grants. We also want to talk about the audits, because the audits is what brings us opportunities for grants and grant persons to be able to come into the town and help us with grant writing. Thank you, Council Brownson, for the information around the ways and means. We also know that we've had some, I guess, discussions around building up cash value. We talked about raising revenue taxes, cutting expenses, liquid the properties that we have, the speed cameras, the tax revenues, the grant dollars, which will help with operations, of course, staff reductions, cutting down on fleet and repairs, and so forth. And so I would like to know in this meeting where we are with the audits, as Ms. Hawkins brought up, because in our last town meeting, we understood that 2023 audit would be completed by March 31st, 2025. And so it is in those audits that the tracking of spending and internal controls, according to Article 20 in our charter, is spelled out there for us. So if we have audits, I'm also requesting a copy of the reports for fiscal year, I'm sorry, for year 2022. 2022 is completed from what I understand. So we can get a report, audit report for 2022. So that's my share on that. Thank you. Give it over to Mr. Frankenfeld.
Yeah, and just to address status on audits from Council President McDonald and Ms. Hawkins. So yes, 22 is completed and filed. That was done September of 24. We're in the process of starting the fiscal year 23 audit. I would say we're 20% of the way through it. We've pulled 80% of the source documents and gave it to the auditor. Now the auditor reviews, comes back, asks questions, pulls other samples. Again, we're on that 3/31 deadline from him. So I'll start communication once we get into February about, hey, Mr. DeSalvo, are we on schedule for 3/31 to wrap up fiscal year 23's audit? Any other questions about audit status?
Yes, I have a question. When we have the auditor, and do we give him a deadline on when the audit should be completed? Like with any, to me, with any contract, there should be a deliverable, there should be a time frame for the deliverable. So when we got the contract for the auditor, did we give him a time frame for the deliverable? And if they don't complete the deliverable in a time frame, is there a penalty associated with it?
So we do agree on timelines, right? You know, even the 22 audit, we had said, hey, we need it done by 9:30. And I think it was 10:31 till we actually got it done and filed. Generally, those contracts don't have a penalty for late delivery. And it's staffing, right? They can't work on it. It's capacity and staffing. They don't have staff to work on it, or they can't get to it. So that's been our delays. So conversation that we had, and so we're introducing legislation this week for an audit firm for 2024's audit. Oh, to start, so anyway, I'm in support of this audit firm. Much better timeliness. So when we agree on dates, we hit them. This is a firm that I work with at other places, and I can vouch for their professionalism and their capacity. Capacity means you can send 4 people to work on the audit, not one, and it keeps moving from point A to point B and doesn't stop.
Okay, Ms. Hawkins,
Yes.
did you have your
Yes.
hand up?
I did, but can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, I'm asking the same question that I asked earlier because I keep hearing about the cuts. That we're gonna have to cut back staff because of the finance and everything. As you see in the admin, there isn't much staff to cut back. So I guess we're talking about public work, police department. How would that, what are you guys are doing for, to make sure that we get the needs that we need as a community when it comes to safety and public work if we do a cutback? Because crime is happening closer to home, right? Our police department is great and great because they have staff. So if we cut back staff, then we lose some of that safety that we have. How are you guys, are you looking at making sure that that doesn't affect the community? And what is the long-term goal for the finance and Forest Heights?
Let's review the 26 budget together as a group, and I think that's going to address most of that. So if you'll hold your question to the end, I think we can resolve it then.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Council Member Noble, I just wanted to real quick ask about, what is the name of the audit firm that we're using?
Salvo, Frank DeSalvo, CPA.
So I thought last session or meeting that we had, we were talking about getting somebody else, or these are the new people?
No. So Frank is doing 23. We're introducing a firm, Lindsay and Associates, for 24's audit contract to start immediately after we wrap up 23.
Okay, and when we wrap up 23, we will have recommendations, because that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in recommendations or, whatever findings Frank DeSalvo had for 2022. Is that be the report? Yes?
Yeah, but again, we're 2 years behind, so it doesn't matter until we can change it, right? It matters in 24.
My concern with the audit or auditor or who's auditing for the town of Forest Heights, Mr. DeSalvo had been the auditor for more than 15 years. And I think there's a statement as far as accountants that you should change or what have you. And for me, and I brought this up at every meeting forever and ever, and that's why it was changed at one point, is because I felt, and it's my feeling, that there was a relationship developed. So when we need auditing, we need real auditing. We don't need pick and choose what looks good or what's right. The town needs to know its financial stability, lack of, what we need to do to change things. So for 15 years, probably not the first 5, but for 15 years, we were out of whack. So when we got a new auditor, then things changed. Now we went back to Mr. DeSalvo, and this time he had a lot of findings, but in 15 years, he didn't have any of those findings. Now that is questionable to me. So.
Mr. Frankenfeld, in terms of were there any findings from the 22 audit? The 22 is complete, right? So were there any findings from the 22 audit that that raise concern for us that we should consider as we are looking toward what we might do for the future?
Yeah, and it's stuff that I flagged when I got here, right? So there's an accountant internally that, does things like bank reconciliations. So bank reconciliations mean that whatever's on your bank statements in your reports, those weren't being done when I got here. They were open for 2 years when I got here. So but it's pretty standard stuff, but you just need somebody consistent in the role doing a good job. So
Let me just say real quick too, I think we keep saying this over and over and over again in terms of the attraction for funding. We want to set ourselves up that we attract funding, right? And to Mr. Smith's point earlier, in terms of grants and what's out there, if Forest Heights, according to what it is that we're trying to accomplish moving forward, could attract opportunities because we have things in order the way that we're supposed to be, and audits is number one. If we have our audits up to date, we won't, I believe, have a problem with attracting opportunities. But we're behind because we haven't gotten ahead of our audits.
In terms of what you can imagine from what you can see, how long you been here?
18 months.
18 months. Good job, man. Get there. Is there a scenario in which the 23 audit and the 24 audit can happen concurrently? So to Council President McDonald's point, we can be up to par so that we can go out and start asking for the money that we want. Is it like, how difficult is that?
So they can start the testing, right? Like how much did you spend in salaries and how much did you put on your credit cards? But they're not going to finalize 24 until 23 is done. So we're looking to contract with a new vendor to provide the service. So encourage your legislators to vote yes on our proposal next week. But no, you can't do them concurrently because the balance sheet has to stop moving. It's got to be audited before they go to the next one.
Okay.
Thank you. My question, for, when I listen to this legislation in the near future is, did we budget for a new, auditor? Or is it because there we go, get into money again? We did?
Budgeted for 2 years. Pricing's the same.
It's the same. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And just for the public, Mr. Frankenfield would, attest to this, that the budget is a legal document and we must treat it as such. So when we say we're going to spend this way and spend that way, that's why we have to consciously do the budget so that we're not moving money here and there to satisfy that. So I'll look forward to hearing from this new auditor.
You gotta make sure you vote yes.
Okay.
Fiscal year budget 26.
Now, I mean, can you be on him now?
Yes. So yeah, we're gonna start holding his feet to the fire. Hey, we said March 31st. Yeah. All right, let's hit the budget real quick. We're running out of time. Okay, so this is my budget versus actuals. Kick it out to Excel. And here's our draft budget 26. I'm going to hit the high points and go pretty fast here and then just save time for questions till the end. Taxes, we're going to assume no changes, same budget as the current year. Again, our legislators, if there's an appetite, the town needs the reserves. So we do have the opportunity to raise revenues through increasing taxes. As drafted in this budget, we are not, but we do have the ability to. This stuff is all pretty standard. When I say this stuff, I mean licenses and permits. We're going to assume pretty close to where we were. So this is fiscal year 25 budget. This is fiscal year 26 projected. So I'm talking about the column on the right is our draft budget. Grants, we didn't talk about the special project grants, the bond bills and the things like that. To me, those are all reimbursable activities. I just focused on the state grants, state aid, highway user, the local and the state impact grants. What we want to get to is what's our cost of operations next year? How much do we have? Speed camera and fines, we kept it pretty consistent. I ticked it up a little bit because this year looks good, but that doesn't mean that next year is going to look good. So, right, once people know about cameras, it skinnies up. Yeah, down here, no changes. Now, the one key thing I want to flag for the group, we're not carrying in. We can't bring 400,000 from savings. And we don't have ARPA left this year to add to the budget. So total revenues, 4.5 million versus 7.5 last year. But some of that is, bringing in from savings, et cetera, et cetera. All right, let's scroll down here. The rest of this is all pretty close to where we were in 25. One thing we're going to do is we're going to add the Christmas bonus at the start of the year in fiscal year 26. So it's already been budgeted and appropriated and it's done.
And what is that again?
Yeah,
For the employee.
yeah, for the staff.
Oh, good.
Yep. So the mayor directs me on how to draft. So it's correct,
No,
correct.
we haven't.
Yep, and I'm here to kind of give you the high points of it, but he's seen it all and we talked about it. So down here, staffing, it's pretty similar to this year. What do I want to call out here? Nothing too much I want to call out. The red means we consolidated lines. Where's our copier? So copier, even though we're over, I think the plan is to get rid of one of the copier contracts just so we can hit that 20 grand.
So I
here.
think that's with the, and this is from last week. I talked to the mayor. I believe that the LPI contract was approved. So since that was approved, the reason why the copier is that high is because we were printing our own newsletters. And so if we're not anymore, we can cancel that contract and bring that cost down.
Oh, I just want to say on the newsletter, is the expense in the color printing? Or would it be less if you print it in black and white?
It's it's actually both. It's color and the amount and because of the toner. The toner is just expensive all the way around. Because the more that we just push out of any type of like newsletters, even if it's color, yes, it is expensive, but it's not, it still will be
Still
expensive
tracking the
for
same
the
way.
same thing. Now, we have two copiers. We have the Megatron downstairs, and we have the police department has a smaller copier. Now, what it's tracking now is we was going to get rid of both and have the LPR contract, and the printing, we would just use regular standard copiers centralized for the office. Not as something as big. That's what I spoke with the mayor about last week.
Okay, because keeping in mind, even with a copier, we must understand too, this is a community of residents who want information. So we still, I can't print it out on my Epson, the budget for you. So we still have to think about maintaining the ability to share information in print, if that's what.
It
the
may be on it,
residents
we may be
want.
on it, then that's a good conversation when we have budget, because right now, for example, the way Mr. Frankenfield, if we cut it completely, then there's no copier. But if we can argue and say, hey, listen, we only need one copier for the town, when we put that much into the budget, those are the conversations that we need to have. Yes, ma'am.
Right, because most of the people in our community receive their information electronically anyway, right? The town just hasn't adjusted. No, most of the people, when you look at the data, most of the people in this vicinity, in this community is technologically savvy. In fact, I don't know if it was the town or the county that actually did the report, the digital survey in terms of how most people receive their information, that even people who are 80 plus right, are inclined to receive their information digitally. If that is the case, if the data is correct, then I think the town should strongly consider the adjustments that we make, right, to respond to the ways that the community likes to receive the information. If it's digital, like, let's figure out how we blast it out in an electronic form in a consistent way. And I know that there are seniors who might want to print it out, but that percentage is much smaller than the lion's share of people who want to just get it right here, you know, every 2 weeks. And that expense is just the cost of constant contact and MailChimp or whatever, which is maybe like $50 a month or something like that. I'm just offering that as a suggestion.
I like that suggestion, but I guess I just look at it from the whole community in the sense that some people want paper. Some people, right, it may be a small percentage, but we have to respect those taxpayers like we respect those tech savvy ones, right? So they need the information as well. So that's just my 2 cents on that, because my mother not touching the computer, okay?
Well, we'll print it out for her, Paula.
Excuse, I just want to say, I have a hard stop at 1 o'clock, so I'm just wanting us to move along as much as we can. Council Brownson.
My question about the printing, it's not just the newsletter. Whenever someone requests any type of information from the town, whether do it, what is it, Public Information Act, whatever, it has to be printed and given to them. So it's not just the newsletter because it's a lot of information that has to be printed and given to the town. And we as council people, we need information every month, every meeting. So it's a lot that
The law stipulates that it has to be printed, or is it just that the information has to be provided to the?
in the means that they ask for it.
So if I said paper, I mean paper.
Yes, so for NPIA, the person requesting it pays for that.
All right, let me get through the budget real quick and then anyway, I'm gonna hit the high points and then we'll stop it for conversation at the end. So anyway, one thing we included here is we put the retirement in. We put 125 back in for retirement. For those of you who aren't familiar, we paused retirement for the town's employees in fiscal year 25 to enter the state's retirement system. Put 125,000 back into the budget in this version of the budget. Staffing, I don't know. I can't show staffing in this meeting, can I?
Was that enough for retirement?
Okay.
Was that enough for retirement?
So the state is going to give us numbers. Like the state's going to audit how many people we have, how many years of service. We included, there's 20 grand up here for state audit.
Yeah, we
retirement.
actually just did the what is it called? The census. We did the census. We turned that in yesterday. Now that is a long process. So for ones that I'm just going to say really quickly. So the state retirement that Mr. Frankenfeld just paused. Well, the pension that Mrs. Frankenfeld just paused. We are in the application phase for the state retirement. We have a twofold with it because we don't know what their ask is from us yet because they haven't did the audit. Now, I do want to point out, Mr. Frankfield put it in there. Now, this is from calls that we have from them. For them to do the audit, it's going to cost about $7,000 for both because we have two. We have two sides. We have an employee side and we have a law enforcement side because those are the two plans that the state has. So it's going to be about $14,000 for them to come and do the audit. Once they come and do the audit, then they're going to tell us, hey, this is the money that you got to pay to come in there. So I think that's the reason why we're saving that money till then.
I thought I saw something from the county where the Greenville Association had introduced that legislation into the county. So the legislation is still going through the motion of
Correct.
being passed. So it's not final as of.
So this is what, so this, just to catch up really quickly, because I want to be short. So basically, because of the timing of everything, the legislation for the state just began. So because the audits hasn't even started yet, if say the letters say the state say, hey, you need to pay $1 million, and we don't have the $1 million, we needed the state legislation to say 50%. That's why they put it in there. So, and just in case as a fallback, to say, hey, we already have legislation in there to pay the 50%, and we're good with it. We don't have to wait till next year because but by the time we get the audits, the session is already going to be done. So that's the reason. So we have a two approach to it now. That's what we're doing now. So we don't even know what they're going to say because they haven't started it yet.
All right, so moving through the budget. Now, this is most of our budget cuts. I do want to share this. Yes, Ms. Hawkins, we see your hand. If you can hold your questions till the end, we'll address them at that point.
Yes, sir. You had already mentioned that.
So I do want to flag our change here in public safety salaries from where we are in the current budget year, $1.2 million down to 940,000 for fiscal year 26. I think it's a downsizing of approximately six that vacancies. 8 officers are leaving for other positions, and we're going to freeze the position and not hire back so that we can right size the reserves of the town. Nothing else significant in here, but that's, so we're taking about $550,000 out of the police department budget next year. Public Works is pretty similar to the current budget. There's some cuts, but not significant cuts. Down here, debt service, none of that changes. We're adding in 25 grand for annexation efforts. We see CPJ invoices for the surveys and things like that. Now, the one key thing I want to flag is in this budget, we're dropping 250 back to savings. So by that, in fiscal year 25, we took $425,000 out of savings. With this budget, we're putting $250,000 back into savings so that we could shore up our reserves. And then we have the cash to weather any shortfalls in revenue. And based on that, we're balanced. We need to come up with 30 grand in changes to balance the budget, but we're pretty close. And we're at our initial, we're in the initial stages of the budget. Obviously we'll tie in the grants later, but we feel like we've got it on paper. So I'll stop there. Yeah, I think, and maybe the chief can speak to that, if like, let's say we're going from our force this year of 2018 to 12 next year, what do you think that looks like?
So that's a conversation that we just had with the council, inevitable that, we are going to have to reduce force. What is going to be impacted now is obviously the 24-hour coverage that we are making that. So of course, now it was always in plan that that if somebody leaves or we encourage somebody to leave, if you understand what I'm saying, that we were not going to fulfill those, put those roles back. And so I do believe, and this is my agreement with everything. We need a year to slow down, to get everything back in order. And so that's why I think, there was so much significant cuts. So we're going to still try to maintain 24. If it's not 24, we'll at least try to do 18 or something like that. But I do want to speak on what Ms. Latoya just gave you guys is the breakdown from the county. So that basically what we was talking about in the last meeting, those are the questions that they ask. So when you talk about how the breakdown, you got to in order to get money from the county, you got to be providing services. And so, like, for example, if we say that, hey, we're not doing 24-hour policing, we're going to have to report on that. That means we're going to get less money. And so those are the things that you have to talk about in there. So yes.
And the equation is The equation is the residents get less of a discount.
Correct.
It's not that we get less money, it's that the county has to charge more because
Mhm.
they got to fill in those 6 hours of coverage.
And so the residents may not understand that. That's the issue.
Okay,
Yes.
I had one question, and I see you, Council Melba. So we talked about, with these reductions, because I like the numbers, I guess. I'm just trying to get clear on the numbers. So we were, 10 officers versus 16 officers? Is that still, those numbers are still the same?
So this is the part where, and this is not no fault of Mr. Prankenfield. This is the part where I have to get with the mayor. Because, for example, there's a difference between a entry-level police officer, which starts at entry level, and then a supervisor. So when we make the cuts, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what position. I don't know, hey, did we cut a corporal? Did we cut a sergeant? Yeah,
Okay.
did they cut the chief?
Did they cut a
Absolutely.
chief, right?
And so, see,
Okay.
I'm saying, it doesn't, so that's where I have not had that conversation yet.
Okay.
So that's why I need to know. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay. So having said that, then we want to keep on the radar, conducting a public safety forum. So whenever that reduction takes place, or when, we want to make sure that we stay on point and make sure that the clerk knows when we should do that.
I'm sorry. As the public safety chair and speaking for, I'm just going to take on the whole community at this time, that our emphasis for safety, I mean, that's a cut that I don't think the town can stand. We're gonna have to duck, dodge and figure out something or find some money somewhere, but because then that affects, here we go again, the request through the county, the money gets funny. Right now, it's okay. So we just need to, well, when the mayor presents this draft, we'll have a whole lot of questions. I'm sorry.
And my question is that some of the things, I don't know whether it was looked at in this draft budget. One of the things is the employees' salaries and the steps in that. Those things were, since the previous treasurer was here, she said that the salaries that the town is paying the employees could not be maintained. So that's one of the things that we should look at. I know, Mr. Frankenfield, the salary cap for the salary steps for the employees. I noticed that, did you all redraft that or something? Because I remember the previous treasurer said the salaries and the steps that the town is paying the employees could not be maintained. That's why we would definitely be going in a deficit if we keep these salary steps going. And that looked like what's happening. So I noticed when you advertise for the new position, the step one for that position is down from what these current budgeted step for the town administrator. So did something happen there that we don't know about?
So what we rolled forward. We rolled forward current pay rates. So, like, I don't reference the scale. Like, I don't follow the scale. I reference what is in payroll. Because to me, then I have what it's going to cost the town, right? So as far as the pay scales, I do want to address raises. We're keeping everybody at the same number from current to next year. But my computer died. But yeah, so I wouldn't say we haven't implemented the salary scale, but for some of the positions, it's more offer letter.
So I think, so the salary scale that was adopted, everybody is still on step one. So there hasn't been any increases as far as the steps. So as far as, like, how we bring in step two or even COLA or anything like that, everybody is still at step one.
Pay scale was adopted back in 2020. So
Correct.
therefore, the treasurer advised, the previous treasurer advised that pay scale was too high for the town to maintain, but the mayor and council approved it. So therefore, that's what these employees are being paid now. So if you try to go back, you got to cut all that. You can't start a new employee with something less than a step one of the pay scale that's already been approved. That was my suggestion a long time ago, yes. We're gonna be back.
Hey, Mr. Frank, Mr. Frankenfield. Hey, I want to just say thank you again, man. You were really sharp. I do have some questions. In terms of, you talked about your firm working with 5 other municipalities. Can you give us some insight as to what other municipalities might be doing to generate more revenue? Maybe we are at the top of our game and, the other ones are looking to us, but if that's not the case, I'd like to know if you can make some recommendations based on what you're seeing with other municipalities and your own professional experience. And then I want to just also say, I just looked at the U.S. Department of Justice Community-Oriented Policing Service, and there are a lot of grants there. I don't think anybody in this community wants to be in a scenario where we are scaling back our police officers. So I don't know what we have to do as a town to start taking advantage of some of these opportunities listed here, as well as those at the state and regional level. But the money is out there. And I want to just encourage us, before we get to having to be in a scenario where we should plan to do the cuts, I think, based on the budget that he's recommending. But if there's something that we can do now, between now and the time that that budget goes into play, to supplement the funds that we need, get the funds that we need to keep those police officers, I think that we should do everything within our power to do that. So can you just give us some recommendations based on what you're seeing, if you have any?
Yeah, and so it's yeah, and so as far as other municipalities, I mean, the speed camera thing has been the latest source of revenue. There's some that are trying the stop signs, but I haven't seen any there's stop sign cameras out there. But I haven't seen anybody be successful. It's about the tax base, right? So it's what your real estate is worth. It's about what your utilities are worth. So some of my other towns have big Pepco transfer stations, and they can tax those pretty hard. It's called utility personal property tax. There's not a lot of opportunity in government, right? Like in the for-profit space, you can go do the next thing, but in government, you kind of you got to rely on taxes, and then it's what kind of taxes are available. Now, there might be amusement taxes, which maybe we could get from the casino. I don't know how all that trickles through, but I haven't seen anybody that's collecting from it. So no, I don't have a lot of great recommendations. It's almost scale your government to what your tax base is, and then you build it the right way. And I think we had an influx of speed camera revenue, and that got followed by the ARPA money, which was federal dollars that came through, and it made the place feel bigger than, yep. And that made us grow too fast. And now we're kind of trying to, wait, hold on. We got to right size this thing.
Looking at developing a strat plan for the town. Because the strat plan would help us to look at each department's budget and how it's strategically aligned and what are those outcomes for whatever projects that's going on. Right now, we don't have anything like that in place. We'll us internally accountable to how we're actually spending money.
You said the ordinance. What did you mean by that? When you said we need to update the ordinance?
No.
Somebody said when he started talking about the thing.
Audits.
Audits.
Yeah, once we get our, like we're saying.
Audits, yeah, I got you. Okay, I thought you said ordinances. I was like, hey.
No, that's you. This is just a question, statement, I don't know, but I know in the city of District Heights, and our former code enforcement officer, Mr. Green, brought it to us that the real estate agents that come into the town, they pay them a fee to post their signs. So we see signs all through the town because we have to start somewhere. It's great if we could start big, but we just have to, check off those little things we can start at. So if the real estate company comes into town and we say, if you put your sign here, then it's X number of dollars, you have to sign up, and we can look at whatever they have in their ordinance to provide that, and we don't have to recreate the thing, we can just cut and paste, right? So that's the way, because you see all these signs going up, and then when they have open house signs, just, it's gotta be a limit to that. We don't do it ourselves, put signs all over the place. So people need to pay because they're gonna sell the house, they're gonna get a commission, right? So they can afford a couple of $100 to post their sign.
And to the amusement tax, we will be able to take advantage of that once we get to the harbor.
National View.
National View. Once we get to the National View project, that would be more revenue coming into the town as well. Also, to what Council Brownson was saying earlier, I think it's following through on some of these items, like the 210, where we actually with that? What is the status of us getting those revenues from that venture? And then the real property permits. Increasing the rental property. So I wanted to circle back to the lights.
Streetlights?
Right, not the street lights,
Oh,
but
the
where we
stop
could
sign.
strategically look for the stop signs that we could use those lights around. So I wanted to put that out there because to me, that ties into the public safety opportunity throughout the town. If there's a budget that some kind of funding or money that we could come up for that.
So there's tons of different ways that we can do it. So we did this is new, especially with the stop sign camera that they just passed last year. Nobody has received money. It's so new, nobody has received revenue from it yet. But that's something that, because it's new, we may need to talk about that during the budget hearings. Because, hey, if we want an initiative to say, hey, listen, we have, if we put like the little stop sign device, we can say, hey, the revenue for that needs to go towards updating the regular stop signs throughout the town, stuff like that. What I also want to point out is if Mr. Frankenfield, we had these discussions, if we raise residential taxes, that is a small dent, and it's not what with Town of Forest Heights, we have a small commercial base. That's what it is. If we increase our commercial base, that's what gets the funding. So what we need to, I don't know, and this is just me, I don't know if the council has a plan or annexation plan in place. Because, for example, like right now, I'm the interim town administrator. We don't know who's going to be in the seat next to me, because I know it's not going to be me for long. But those plans need to be in place for them to follow. Because if we know that the plan is to annex commercial properties, who's going out to these business owners and saying, hey, come into the town, this is the type of services that we are offering? Because the council's not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
we got to put that plan in, and those plans, and you set them up. And of course, what it is with those type of an annexation agreement, you kind of, forego the taxes for about 2 to 3 years, and then you get your taxes on because I think about it. You want to make it attractive for them to come in, but you're trying to set yourself up financially this 2 fiscal years from now to sustain. Because one thing that I've been preaching, that the only thing that's going up is the bills. The revenue ain't going up, because when we're doing all these cuttings, the gas that we pay for the county went up, the healthcare went up, but our revenue stays everything. The price for ammunition, how it was 2 years ago for us to practice, has went up tremendously. But so we have to put in ways now to keep up with the expenses for as far as revenue. So I don't know if those plans are in place.
And it goes back to the following up on, like we're talking about right now. What is the status of this on 210? What is the status? So
We use the company CPJ. Remember, annexations are expensive itself. I believe that the one going down towards 210, for them to do all the plots, that bill itself is like almost $30,000 itself. So you have to plan, you have to plan for those things. And so. $2,000. These companies are expensive.
Yeah, I want to say that I know that there is an annexation plan in place for, and Attorney Best probably would be the person that can answer that best, because last time he discussed the annexation of Mead's Liquor and another one down there, and that's a commercial property where we could get dollars, but I don't agree about giving them a tax base for 2 years or something like that. We need the money now, and we're doing them a favor as well. Also, the stop sign camera, I think that was on a resolution that was, and the council voted that down. So I want you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, can I go next? Oh, so annexation is wonderful, marvelous. However, when we talk about commercial areas and we talk about police, reducing the police force, what's the incentive? I don't want to annex if you're not, because I'm not, right now I'm getting the county anyway. So that's why I say the emphasis must be on how to maintain our police department. Once upon a time, someone from the White House came here and I spoke to her and she said, do you realize you're in the prime where we are located? We're 2 minutes from DC, we're 2 minutes from Alexandria, we're in a prime spot. So there are a lot of federal opportunities for us. Now, it may change through, administrations, but right now we need to look to those things to get that money, because I'm anti-police reduction. I'm not going to receive it. I'm not going to accept it. So if I got to go out here help Public Works a little bit, we better find somewhere else to do something, because the police department cannot be the place. Thank you.
I just wanted to say one thing real quick. If you Google Town of Forsyth Heights, when I Google towns, why am I going to that town? What is the attraction to that town? Why would I want to visit that town? What is interesting in that town that I would want to go and spend my money in that community with these businesses that's eventually going to bring revenues into the town, right? So they got on here, Oxen Cove Park and Oxen Hill run, or farm rather. They got Smithsonian Institution. They got the Capitol Wheel, which is right over at the harbor. They have the Mount Vernon Trail, which is at the top of 414 when you go across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. They have the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, Memorial Bridge. They have the Awakening, They have there's a park, a Betty Bloom Park. I'm not even sure where that is, but they have this park on here, which we could have Bell Acres Park when we do the groundbreaking. They have what is this? Paul E. Garber facility. Not sure what that is, but they have that on here. They have Harmony Hall Park. So all of these things, again, what attracts people to the town of Forsyth Heights that would increase our revenues and the relationships and partnerships that we have with the businesses in the town. That is a constant. I think what Mr. Smith was talking about in terms of, these relationships that we partner with these people. And I think LPI is going to help us with that, right? There could be some opportunities for us to do that with LPI. So these are the kinds of things that I think we're moving towards, right? As we talk about them and, give people's ideas and feedback on what it is that we're doing. Did you have your hand up, Council? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure. Go ahead.
For me.
I'm sorry. To your point about planning, follow-up, we had the Senate now in District 26, where we are located as it relates to the state. It's only one municipality in District 26. We had the senator, we had the 3 delegates come down here. We walked them, drove them all around the town, what our needs were, what we needed. But nobody follows up because we don't create the vision. It's just like that building on Livingston Road. They see it as a great place for this whole community. So if they see it there, that's why we engage the high school students, the middle school students, What do you want it to be? And then we all march to the county, to the state to say we need funding because nothing is down here. We can have a motor vehicle. We could have a whole lot of things, but we say it, then we stop. We can't just say it. We have to keep with it because we have their attention. And now District 26, the senator and one of the, they rent a space, but they could be right here. They could be, they don't have to be down there in the Fort Washington area. They can be here where the people are, right? So that, and I did talk to some students, and that's how we engage this whole community. We have artists in here. Let's draw up something how we want it to be. You know, we bought it for a purpose. We bought it for the police department. So we can't just drop our dreams because now we have new administration. We got to put some concrete on those dreams and make them happen. I don't care who's here. So it needs to move along. Thank you.
I was gonna say, Council President, one of the things that I think would be helpful for us as a town, is to have a project tracker. Which is just like a spreadsheet, and you have like the name of the project, who is assigned to, and then a status. And we just keep adding to that, you know, every meeting, every time we have a meeting. I mean, you know, people, you know, govern and manage projects the way they will. But I think having a project tracker where you can just, you know, that we have these 15 things that we want to keep our eyes on. And, you know, at the beginning or end of every meeting, maybe it's once a month that you just pull the project tracker out and just get a status update on all those things. You know, I found that to be very helpful, especially with, you know, large organizations who have a lot of moving parts. The other thing I want to say is, you know, we have not because we ask not. To Councilwoman Noble's point, like to bring all of our elected officials here and to show them our needs, but then not to turn around and say, send a letter and say, hey, look, or send somebody for a follow-up conversation and say, hey, look, we need $25,000 for this. We need $75,000. That's how people are getting things from elected officials all of the time because they are going to ask. So we got to know what we want to ask for. I also think that having a plan that emerges from community forums like this that exists no matter who is in office, right? Because my sentiment in every community where I'm doing work, in Mississippi, 601, over there in Southeast, all right, is that when a plan emerges as a community effort and it is initiated from the community versus the council, then the community pushes that plan forward and the elected officials come in and buy into a plan that is already in progress, but we not having to start over, you know, every 2 to 4 years. So maybe I'll help with that. And then finally, what I want to say is when you look at National Harbor, okay, National Harbor has attracted to itself one of the largest hotel chains in the country, the Gaylord, okay, one of the largest outlet malls in the Tanger in the country, one of the largest casino chains in the country, okay? National Harbor is a metropolis for tourism, all right? They are building it as a metropolis for tourism. So the question that we should ask ourselves as we are proximate to National Harbor as it is and as it is unfolding is, what could be our unique advantage as a town who is called Forest Heights? What do we have a lot of? We got a lot of trees and we got a lot of nature that we're not right now using to our advantage, you know, to feature on a site like the one that the council president just mentioned. So what would it mean for us to become the nature haven proximate to National Harbor so that the hundreds of thousands of people who are coming there to shop and go to the casino, certainly somebody over there wants to take a run, wants to look at flowers, wants to bird watch, wants to have a family picnic. And we have all of that area adjacent to the Potomac that we've not yet realized. We have a park here that we have literally hundreds of thousands of people drive by every day. We don't have our town name. We could have big letters that just say Forest Heights so people know that we are here. And as they are driving by, they have to ask themselves, well, what's going on in Forest Heights. So I think that there are some real opportunities for us. And I think one of the things that I want to commit to as a community member is maybe helping us to convene forums on a regular basis that are kind of community led, where we can put ideas out here to kind of just see what happens. You know, I've always talked about having First Saturday in Forest Heights, right? Where we have vendors and we have music and we have an opportunity for community people to come together. Our elected officials can come and see what we're doing. I'm talking about the ones that don't live here, but they can come and see what we're doing. And it's a regular way for us to generate interest and revenue and the momentum that we need, you know, as a part of our community. So that will be my commitment coming out of this. And I just want to say again, man, thank you so much for your professionalism and for knowing the answers to the questions that we had. Thank you so much.
And this is an expert tennis player.
Oh, wow.
We have a community garden.
Oh, wow.
We got it going on.
But whether people don't know about it, I have to say it. Get it updated. So.
Okay, so we are on our, as far as our agenda is concerned, and thank everybody for their shares around the room. Ms. Hawkins, did you have your hand up again? Because I want to make sure I didn't miss you or something. Okay. Did you have
I
something to say?
did,
Ms.
but
Hawkins?
that's okay. That's okay. I can ask the question later. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay.
Thank you. So we've gone over the fiscal year budget. We've gone over budgets and actuals. We talked about grants, and we went over some specifics with the budget. Our next meeting will be before the, let's see, is it March? So the end of March. No, the end of April, Okay, so so that date will be the fourth Saturday. And it's generally, this meeting is generally before the Ways and Means, but we had to schedule a little conflict, so we will make it that in April.
And we need to get public works in here.
Yeah, we need to, that will be our meeting date for the committees, and maybe we gotta allow a little break time in between.
I think we want to probably be clear about our ask as well, in terms of what we want the department heads to bring. Because what did Councilwoman say?
No, the committee meetings, so.
Oh, the committee meetings. Okay, the chair. Okay, got it. Well, you, Council Brownson said that it's the Ways and Means, Public Safety, Finance
Public
Committee, Public Works, Beautification.
No, all of the standing committees, the 4 standing committees according to the charter.
Okay,
Let's
just the
come on
4.
ad
Okay.
hoc.
Okay. All right. So we got some things that we have entertained here. Thank the community for coming out. And is there anything else to share around the room? Yes.
So for next week, there's another piece of legislation that I want to talk to you about. Introducing the Maryland Local Government Investment Pool. It's just a savings vehicle. It's another cash account, but it'll let us collect interest on our cash balances. I'm a huge supporter of it. I use it at other places. We put cash over there. We collect interest on it till we need it. We pull it back into the operating account and then we pay bills with it. But so like last year, we probably had $1.5 million in cash for the duration of the year. Interest rates were about 5% last year. We could have made 65 grand in interest if we had a tool like that in place, but we didn't. So it's the MGLIP Investment Trust. It's just an investment. It's an interest paying savings account that we're introducing legislation for next week. No, but it's for the municipalities, right? So it's just in and out. I think so. You asked me about it. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's coming up again.
I think it's the name of the fund that we have to have money over there, that we can't touch.
Yeah, the reserve fund, there's language out there.
You're not talking about that.
I'm saying move it over there and we'll collect interest over in the MGLIP fund.
That we-
Yeah, yes. Yes.
Got people, stuff like that, I said, $250,000.
Yep.
You can't just move it over there and how long you have to leave there before you get interest on it?
No, it's a money market fund. So my other places, they move it weekly. So you just pull out what you need and I'll manage it because I'll know when payroll's going to hit and when we're going to pay bills. And I'll leave as little as I can in the regular operating account and put the rest of it over there so that we're picking up as much interest as we can. Yeah, no, but yeah, it's like a money market account. So like you get it daily. But yeah, no, it doesn't have to sit for a certain amount of time. But yeah, I'm a big supporter of it.
Like a 401k, so you invest in some of your money. It's like a 401k where you invest in some of your money, you know, pay- put some in money market.
Okay, any more shares around the room before we close? Okay, thank you, everybody.